Ever wish you had someone to talk to anytime, anywhere, no matter what you're going through? Meet PsychPal, your 24/7 AI companion designed to help you process your thoughts, calm your mind, and keep you moving forward. Chat anytime during a panic attack, on a restless night, or just when you need to vent. Prefer talking instead of typing? Try voice journaling. PsychPal listens, transcribes, and truly understands. You can even upload screenshots of tough conversations and it'll help you unpack how they made you feel. PsychPal keeps life organized too. It can add appointments to your calendar, track your mood, and even summarize your sessions for your therapist so you'll never lose progress. Plus, built in crisis resources are always just one click away. It's a privacy first, constantly evolving, made to complement your professional care, not replace it. Ready to try it out? Head over to the link in this episode and use my code Pete at checkout to get 20% off your first month subscription to PsychPal. PsychPal, because your mind deserves a companion too. There we go. I think that's the one I like. We got it. We got it. Boom.
What do I do when life's so meaningless? What do I do when I just ain't feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Anyone feeling this? What do I do when life's so meaningless? What do I do when I just ain't feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. Desires not to exist. I know the risk to share this on a track. Every other rapper.
Welcome into another exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. Welcome to season 4 of Pete vs. Anxiety. Actually, everybody, I want to welcome you in for the 4th season of things. Thank you so much for being here for this long. As always, let's give a shout out to my partners from PsychPal. Link will be in the description if you guys want to try it out. Free 7-day trial. Use Pete at your checkout to get 20% off the first month because I argued for 20% for you. With that being said, let me introduce my guest today. First, I have a psychiatric nurse practitioner, nervous system specialist, and the founder of Neurovana Calm, the one, the only Tanya Young, and also joining us, if we just had her.
Yeah.
Our second guest is a faith-led, mental health-centered thought leader, helping women build success through losing themselves. Grounded in the belief that clarity and emotion, well-being, and spiritual alignment are the true foundation of sustainable leadership. Please welcome the creator of the Soft Simple CEO, the one, the only, laKisha Mosley. Thank you so much for both of you ladies being here today.
Thanks, Pete.
So, ladies, you want to go ahead and let everybody know a little bit more about yourself? Maybe.
It's good to see you again, laKisha.
Yeah, same here, Tauna.
Right. Well, ladies, did you want to go ahead and let everybody know a little more about yourselves?
Sure. Tauna, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a nurse practitioner specializing in psychiatry, like you said, Pete. Been having a great time doing that. It was, my career is something I never expected, never saw coming, never expected to have a career in mental health. Didn't expect it to even be interested in it, and ended up not only being interested but loving it. I started out, I was just going to do 1 day a week of it, and I was going to work at a primary care office the other days. And I started at that 1 day a week, and I ended up doing that full time and saying, never mind, to the primary care office. And I fast forward, I'd been doing that for 5.5 years, and I learned about this device, this tool, for the mental health tool that's been out for decades that I never knew about. And it's incredibly impactful and effective, but pretty much unknown in the psychiatric community. And that was so confusing to me and unacceptable that I ended up starting a whole other separate company called Neurovana, which promotes those devices, trying to make them more well-known, essentially, because they're so effective that they need to be out there. People need to know about them. So that's what Neurovana does. And then that eventually led me to meeting laKisha too, because I'll let her, tell her story, but she had actually used this mental health tool and found it very impactful for herself. And so we found that our missions and purposes are very aligned, and we have a great time doing some of our things together.
Well, laKisha, why don't you tell me a little about yourself as well?
Well, thank you. So I am a thought leader around mental wellness. I came up with the Soft Simple CEO after my breakdown, actually back in November 2025. And so what the Soft Simple CEO is a faith-based mental wellness-led framework for leaders. And what I do is I help women, high achieving women, really redefine what success is for them using mental health and faith as a foundation, but also how to build it sustainably. And not just business, but life. As Tana said, that I actually use the device. It's not very far from me ever, ever. Because it is a part of one of the principles that I have actually built into the Soft Simple CEO, which is regulation before strategy. And so I'm just excited to be here to talk with both of you.
Well, that's awesome. Like, it's great that, that you're using something that not a lot of people even know about. When Tana found it, she was like, hey, why are we not using this? Which is a lot of things. It's really interesting to find a lot of subjects that people don't even talk about. I didn't even know what it was until I came across the profile and I was like, wait, what is this? This is kind of an interesting little device. So how did you find it though? Was it something that you were given or something you found yourself?
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh, well, yes, I was found, Tana's sister found me on Instagram as someone who works in the mental health space. And it was just a blessing to be introduced to Tana and get to know Kara even better because it's okay to talk about nervous system regulation. It's okay to
Mhm.
talk about we have to do the resets, but not all the time does meditation help. Not all the times does journaling help, taking a walk. All of those things don't always help in a vacuum. So this device allows me to do those very things, but do it in a very, I want to say, quicker way. I use it when I'm driving in my car. If I know there's a long commute, I live in Houston, y'all. A 20-minute ride could be an hour ride. Okay. That gives me
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah.
That gives me anxiety. If I know that I'm about to have a very kind of maybe hard conversation, this device allows me to regulate before I go into that conversation. Why? Because now I'm thinking clearer. There's clarity that comes around that. I'm regulated. So I talk and speak and act from a space of regulation, not from overwhelm, not from panic, not from fear. So it was a blessing for me to be able to get to know them and actually have the device as a tool that I use.
That's awesome though. I mean, like you said, there are all the other tools you can use, but you're like sometimes those don't work. And I
Right.
mean, that's okay. That's why you have multiple tools in your belt because you want to have different things you can use. Tana could probably agree to that too, because she works in the psychiatric field itself. She's seen a lot of these things, learned a lot of these things probably and stuff like that, and that's great though. And I know that the two you ladies have done a lot of work together recently. I know she said she attended a summit you had or a speaking event or something, which is really cool to see though, because I love it when you have two people that already know each other. So it doesn't make it really awkward when the three of us are sitting here talking,
Right. Right.
Listen, so
Yeah, well,
I lived in
laKisha's hard
Houston
to
before.
not, like, make a friend.
Oh, no, go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. There's a little bit of a delay in the sound. I apologize for that.
No, you
I
could go right
said,
ahead.
to meet laKisha, to know laKisha is for her to be a friend because she's so open and, like, I don't think she meets someone who doesn't end up being her friend by the end of the conversation.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, she gives off that vibe right away, man. Very bubbly, very inviting to a conversation. Be that person to come up to you and just start talking to you about random things. I do the same thing with people too. I could talk to everybody. I've been doing this for God, 250 episodes now.
Yeah.
In things like that, and it's just like the conversation is always interesting because when you get into it. You don't know where these are going to lead. Like some of these conversations have went 0 to 1,000 right off the bat. Depending on what you're talking about, and things like that. So my question to both you ladies though is mental health a big thing in your families? Do other people have mental health issues?
Well, I would say, yes, it's in my family some. I think I've had this same struggle that a lot of parents have. I had, a couple of kids, especially a daughter who has struggled with anxiety in particular, just anxiety so much, and it made, raising her uniquely challenging, and especially since, like, I did not know a lot about mental health. I personally did not have a lot of those struggles, and it was not something that I was able to understand or even recognize. So I have a lot of regrets. I don't judge myself for it because I was doing the best I could with what I knew, but I didn't know a lot. And so if I had known then what I know now, I could have helped her so much sooner than I did. And one of the things about this particular mental health tool that really kind of chaps me a little bit is that, hey, this tool has had FDA clearance since 1979. It is incredibly effective for exactly the problem that she was having every night. If I had known about it then, her evenings and mine could have been a lot less stressful. I didn't know about it. I was doing the best I could with the knowledge, tools, resources I had at the time. But now that I know about it, I feel a, a responsibility to make it available to other people to use. And it's incredibly rewarding to see how impactful it is, just even for laKisha, but so many people. Like I'm still a full-time practicing psychiatric provider, and I see it all day, every day in my office. I keep one in my office. It's always right there, and to see it be so helpful for so many people, it's fun. I'm having a great time.
True. Would you say it's probably because it's not a part of big pharma's plan? I mean, because like a lot of people always want to push medicine, and versus this not being a medical, like this not being medicine per se, this is being a device that actually helps them, which not without any side effects really, because it's a device that's worked for so long. Why do you feel like people haven't really talked about it much?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can't say for sure. I will say that the pharmaceuticals have dominated the conversation, and and I'm not anti-medication. Let's not make a mistake. I'm a prescriber. I prescribe medications all day long, and I'm happy to do it. I'm not anti-medication. I'm pro options. I'm pro, hey, letting people know what their options are. Medications have their time and place. I'm happy to prescribe. Like I said, I do it all the time. But something that there's a key difference. There's so many conversations that I just simply don't have to have regarding this device. When I'm prescribing, I'm always asking people about the side effects, the weight gain, sexual side effects, allergic to it, the refills, just dangers of taking too much, don't combine with this med and that med. We don't even need to have that conversation with this. And another key difference is, the safety profile, there's no comparison. They don't even belong in the same conversation. But also the effect, like the success rate. SSRIs are kind of like they're at the forefront of mental health medications. They have, say, like a 45 to 55% success rate. And the metric for success is if the patient improves 50% or more, that's considered a success. Okay, so we're going to use that same metric across the board. SSRIs, it's 45 to 55%. 67% using that same metric, but also, so it already outperforms there. Okay. But when you factor in all of those other things that just aren't something we even have to think about, the gap is huge. It's huge. So it makes sense that anyone who does have a financial interest in pushing one strategy over another would want to keep that one invisible. And like I said, I don't have anything against medications. I think meditation's great, prayer's great, grounding exercises, breathing exercises, meditation, journaling, all those things are wonderful. Wonderful. I encourage all of that. Counseling, wonderful. It needs to be on the list. It has earned its place on that list, just as good, if not better, than everything on that list.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against medications that have their place where they're necessarily needed, and things like that. It's just interesting that this is the rate of it is so high, but no one talks about it is really shocking. So, laKisha, back to you though with the question of, does mental health run in your family?
Yes, oddly it does. And I will tell you what maybe a lot of people don't consider. In my culture, in the Black culture, we don't talk about mental health a lot. Our fix has always been go to church and pray about it. You don't have enough faith. And as a preacher's kid, for me, that was always kind of a catch-22. My grandmother actually had 2 nervous breakdowns. No one ever talked about that. My aunt had depression for years, severe depression for years. No one ever talked about that. I think my mom drank a lot because she had a level of depression that maybe she couldn't put into terms, and it literally killed her. And so in coming into this space, by accident, quote unquote, not something that I actually wanted to do. And then me having 2 breakdowns myself and having conversations with my aunt, um, who is now the only sibling because my mom is deceased. Now I'm like, y'all knew and didn't even say nothing? Like, we never had these conversations about what a nervous breakdown was, where my grandmother was actually hospitalized. Like, all of these things. My aunt was like going to a therapist and getting medication. Like, None of these things were talked about ever. And so for me, when I had the first breakdown, that's when the educational piece came. I was talking to my children about what this
Hmm.
is and why we need to be doing it, regardless of what the culture says. And then my daughter actually knowing, like, yeah, now she has anxiety and there are things that she has to do to make sure she takes care of herself when she's going into certain situations. I think my son may be struggling with some things himself that he just is not ready to admit. But, the prayer is he gets that revelation at some point. But now it is a forefront conversation in my household and anyone who's around me. We're talking about it.
That's awesome. So, how old is your son, man? If you don't mind me asking.
He's 27.
Okay, so with the suicide rates in men, are you concerned that he may go that route? Because you said you think he may be dealing with something. Is that one of your biggest concerns right now with the rates that we're looking at? 80% overall every year are mostly men. You know, all the statistics that you
Right,
constantly see being in this space. Obviously,
right.
is that a big concern of yours?
Absolutely a concern of mine. He has not exhibited what we say the telltale signs, but then we don't know.
Hmm.
We don't know. We've seen people be
Exactly.
happy 1 minute and 5 minutes later they go and they die by suicide. So it's definitely a concern of mine. The conversation has been to kind of ease into things with him, but also be very firm
Yeah.
because this is a life or death situation. And so I can't be quiet about it, but I also have an amazing tribe of men who I feel like sow into him, pour into him as well. But it is definitely a concern.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Tanya, what is your thoughts on this? So with the rates of being 80%, do you have any advice from your point of view of like ways people to start these conversations without making it feel so uncomfortable?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think having the conversations and creating spaces where it's okay to have those conversations can go a long way. Just, letting it be known that's okay. Hey, it's okay to talk about that here. And laKisha in particular, she does a good job of that. Like, she's an event planner, and so
Hmm.
she's out front, and she's kind of a gatherer of people, be around a lot of people. And I will say, so like I made for laKisha like a specially branded one. That's why hers looks different than mine.
Well, that's really
But
cool
if
though.
you see laKisha at her own event, yeah, hers says "Got your calm on," and it's got like it's bedazzled, because you've met her, you know why it had to be that way, right?
Right,
Like she,
exactly. Exactly.
she needed us that one a little extra. But if you see laKisha at her event, I actually made her a little way to like wear it on her body, and she's walking around. She's running the show, but she's wearing that, and so she's modeling herself. Hey, we're gonna show up. We're gonna take care of business. We're gonna get things done. I'm gonna, she's, telling people what to do, leading, but she's looking after her own mental health in that process. And without maybe even thinking about it, maybe she has, but she is modeling, hey, we acknowledge mental health in this space. And those things that goes a long, long way. And I think that we're getting better about doing that than we used to be. But we still have a lot of work to do. And she mentioned some uniqueness about this specific culture, and some cultures are doing better about making it mental health an okay topic than others. And so I appreciate her leadership within the Black community, also making it okay to talk about it there.
That's awesome, though. I appreciate you all being so honest about everything. Lakeisha, especially you sharing that information about your mom. I'm so sorry to hear that, she had gone through that, but, the ways mental health have changed over the years. So it's getting better and the conversation's getting easier for everybody to start talking about it more. I think that this conversation right here is powerful in its own right mind because we're talking about it more than we have ever before. People are opening more spaces like mine. And other people I meet, a lot of people like get into this space too are all asking me how it is. I got into it, and things like that too, and I did it for my own self. At first I was doing this, it's like, all right, well, I know these people aren't talking about it, doctors are talking about it, but where's the regular people just having conversations? Like, I'm not trained, laKisha's not trained, we're just out here talking about these kind of things. So, was it hard bringing the conversation up first? I mean, I know a lot of people push back in these spaces and go, "Oh, well, you're crazy," when you start sharing your own stories.
My story is kind of unique how I even got into this space. Initially, I got into this space around a really pivotal time. It was 2020. We had Black Lives Matters going on. We had George Floyd going on, and we were in the middle of a doggone pandemic. I mean, we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do anything. And so we were at a very pivotal time, I will say. And so I started a series called Racism in Black America, and I had different industries, and the last one was mental health. And that one was explosive. From there, I got all these DMs like, hey, we need this conversation to keep going. I haven't seen so many Black people talking about mental health. Like, we need to keep this conversation going. And from there, I birthed an event called My Mind is My Business, which Tana was so gracious in coming and being a huge supporter of the event, but it's been going since 2020. That was when the conversation like initially started. At that time, I didn't know that I had anything mental health going on, but it was so intriguing to me that there was so many people that were hurting at this time. And it took a doggone pandemic for us to see that silence was not always golden. That silence brought out demons and things that we were not aware of, but we needed a safe space to land to be able to have the conversation. And so for me, it was like, okay, let's do it. Let's keep doing this. And then I had my first breakdown in 2022. With all the resources, Pete and Tana, with all the connections, I still had a breakdown. So it doesn't matter what's in your repertoire. It matters, are you using them and do you feel safe to use them, and what capacity can you use them? So it wasn't really hard. After that breakdown, I decided that I don't want any other person, especially in the entrepreneurial space, to feel like they were alone, to feel like they could sit in a bed and decide that they wanted to die by suicide, or that if something happened to them, that it was just okay. Like, if I'm no longer here, oh, life could be good for everyone else. And so I started to have these conversations. I did go get some certifications, mental health first aid, both youth and adult. I decided to get involved with NAMI. And so I wanted to put in the work around mental health, but also advocacy. I'm in a state that doesn't really do much with mental health. Texas is huge, but we don't do a lot around mental health. And so that was what I decided that I wanted to do, and to keep the conversation ongoing. So I do get backlash a lot of times from people who look like me, a lot of times from the Christian and faith-based communities. I get a lot of backlash, but I don't care. I'm still going to keep talking about it. And one thing I will say, being a preacher's kid and actually knowing the Bible and the word myself, I can intelligently have conversations with people who say, well, this isn't biblical, or you're not faithful enough. I just bring out what scripture says about it, or even characters in the Bible who I feel like have struggled with some form of mental health.
I love that though. I love that how you tie in faith like that, but you're not. You know how you run into some of those people that kind of like force it on you,
Yeah,
but you're not doing that. You're just like, okay, well, let me compare this for you, and you're bringing out comparison figures of like, oh, well, hey, listen, these people in the Bible dealt with it, and these are the kind of things. This is the way I feel about it. You're not like, hey, you have to believe this, and I love that. I love it. I think faith has its place in everything. I think it's the way you present it to people.
exactly.
God doesn't have to be the higher power. It can be whatever higher power you choose to
Right,
be up there. You know what I'm
right.
saying? And things like that too. And Tanya being in the space, she probably hears a lot of this. So Tanya, so the question to you as well is it hard when bringing these topics up? I mean, you work in the space itself, so you probably have a better way of bringing it up to people because you have more facts than we would, though.
Yeah, I mean, so working in psychiatry, by the time people go to psychiatry, they've usually accepted that they've come to help, specifically seeking help for mental health. In other spaces medically that I was working at, like primary care and different places, that was not the case. A lot of times people thought that it was not a mental health issue. They thought it was something else. A moment in particular that I can think of is when I was working in a primary care office, and a woman came in um, saying, like, she was explaining like cardiac type symptoms. And I was asking her all the questions about, assessing the situation. And one of the questions I asked her was, do you have a history of anxiety? And she's like, oh, no, 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 no. This is not mental. This is physical. And I said, oh, I know it is. It's anxiety is as a very physical experience. And And that I realized, gosh, so many people don't get that. They think that it's that they're not the same thing. Emotions often, usually they'll show up physically before the brain has chance to think about what's happening. I mean, you think about it, like, my husband sometimes, just to mess with me, he'll come into a room and like startle me, you know, and I know that I'm safe. I'm not afraid of my husband, but my body is going to react. Your
Mhm.
body is going to react first and ask questions later, right? My body responds before I even process what had happened. That is a thing that is completely missed by a lot of people. Um, and that was something that's kind of what drew me to mental health, because my interest really was not about emotional connecting and talking about feelings. That was not my interest. My interest was mostly on those physical things that we're talking about. And then I saw how much people didn't see that the mental health was so embedded in that. Like they just completely woven together. And that is what initially kind of sparked my interest in looking at mental health, is saying, gosh, like the mental health of the person has such an impact on their ability to heal from the physical impairment that hospitalized them or had them seek care, but it's completely overlooked by everyone in the treatment plan, including the patient. And so bringing awareness back to that was probably what initially sparked my interest in mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that though too. Like I said, when I looked into space originally, I was when I started this whole podcast, I was like, I wonder what people are talking about it. And a lot of doctors were, no, all respect to all the doctors out there talking about things, but I was like, where's the real conversation happening? Like, where are these people just talking about things? And that's when I started this thing, and it evolved into what it is now. Is just real honest conversation. Like, people can come in this space and they've told me some wild stories of some things, and I don't judge anybody, because it's like, this is your story. Like, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to give you that space where you can amplify your voice and let other people hear what's going on, and it's ever since then, it's been a push to try and create the conversation. So I'm always looking for new and more interesting people to bring into the conversation as well, and it's great that, we have two CEOs sitting here talking about it as well, because, you don't get this chance. Usually have two high powered ladies come in here and just start talking about these things, and things like that too. So I appreciate y'all coming and hanging out here for sure. So my question to you now is, this is for both of you all. If you had one message to the world, what would you say that one thing would be about mental health? laKisha's over there really thinking
Want to
about
go
this
first,
one.
laKisha?
I mean, to narrow it down to one message sometimes it's hard. But I would,
Yeah, like one,
yeah,
you just get one. Let's see, about mental health. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
would just say that, like, I feel like nothing in business works when your mental health is out of alignment. And so we have to figure out ways to be in life and business without losing ourselves in the process.
yeah, I think that a lot of times when they use the term mental health, they're not talking about mental health. They're talking about mental illness. And what is mental health, really? I think it's a misused term. Mental health is what we are all trying to achieve, is, emotional wellness. That's the only reason I care about my cholesterol or my BMI and all the other things with health. It's because I want to feel happy. I want to be happy. And mental health can be that ambiguous thing that just makes the keeps moving the target, so that it can just make so many of those things out of reach. And it needs as much attention and care and intention as the physical things that we do to take care of ourselves. Like, even a person who has very low standards is going to brush their teeth and comb their hair and take a shower most days. And a lot of us don't give even that much attention to our emotional needs.
I didn't even pay attention. Yeah. I love what you
Yeah.
said about mental health, because I think a lot of people miss that point, that we all have mental health. It's just some of us live with a mental illness or a mental health condition. And so mental health should be a part
Mhm.
of your language, a part of your vocabulary when you talk about everything else. I love when people are like, oh, well, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It is that big of a deal. Your brain is is the main thing that functions. If you are brain dead, you're dead. I don't care what else could possibly be working on you. Eventually, it's all going to shut down because this central system is no longer working. Your mental health is the same way. That's why it manifests in physical health. I remember going to the doctor like, "You need to give me a pill," and she's like, "No, you need to go see a therapist. You don't need a
Yeah.
pill. You need a therapist."
Yeah, and when you explained it at your show, you said, "My back hurt, my eye hurt." I
Yes,
was like, "Even her eye hurt." Like, that's when you know, girl, like, you need to,
yes,
like, even your eye hurt. Like,
yes,
that's how much, like, your emotions were saying, "Oh my gosh, like, give me some attention
yes,
here, you know? We're
yes.
gonna come out your eye if you're not," like, those emotions are gonna be expressed.
Right,
They're gonna find a way to get expressed
right.
one way or the other, and if you don't express them in language and acknowledging them, then
Exactly,
they're gonna be expressed in your body.
exactly, exactly. And they come out in the funniest ways. Like, whose eyeball sockets hurt?
I think those are both great messages, though. And things like that as well. So, all right. So now we're at that part of the interview where I told you all I have two questions for you. Now, the first one is a bit of a fun question, and I'm really interested to hear the answers to this. So, the question to both of you is that if your mental health had a song, what would that song be? Look at Lakeisha laughing. See, everybody loves this question because it's so
Oh, that's
fun.
funny.
The millions of answers you could have for this thing.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I mean, okay, so I'm just gonna just put this out there. Like, there's a Nirvana song, okay? Like,
Okay.
that said, Kurt Cobain, he said, "Just because you're paranoid don't mean they're not after you." But that is not actually what I would say. I just like that line in there, that it's just kind of funny to me. But if I was, gosh, for some reason, the first thing that came to mind was "We're Not Gonna Take It" by Twisted Sister,
Mm,
you know?
Okay. Okay. I like that
Like,
one.
we're not gonna take, like, the old script, the old way of doing things that isn't working. If it's not working, I'm gonna call it what it is, and it's something that's not working. I'm not gonna take that, I'm not gonna settle for, because mental health, like, it's all about quality of life.
mhm.
It's very rarely a life or death issue. This is, like, it's about what you accept, what you'll settle for, and, if that's like, with it comes to emotional wellness, it's like, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to live my best life. And sometimes doing that means, like, well, I'm not going to settle for what isn't the optimal amount that I could achieve. So that's just the first thing that came to my mind, is we're not going to
I
take it.
like that
I
though.
love
That's
that.
a really good one. Twisted Sister is the first entry we've had for that one. We get a lot of interesting answers to that one. So Lakeisha, you're up. What do you got for us? You start laughing when this
I
question was
know
asked.
because I'm like, they gonna think I'm cuckoo for
Like,
real.
where do I choose? Like so
It
many.
is a lot, but my favorite, I think when the first that came to mind was Big Energy by Lotto. And I
Yeah.
love that one because it's when I think about it, I'm like, okay, sometimes with your mind, you're like, when you gonna stop playing? Like basically, I'm telling this brain, like, girl, shut up, be quiet, sit down, be still. When you have big energy. So that would be the first song.
Yeah, big energy for sure. Like that's not even a question, girl. You came in this room, you lit up the room. Like you
Uh-huh.
could tell you were just explosively bubbly and everything else. And I could see how y'all work together though, because like yin and yang, Tanya's a little more mellow, you're just more bubble, you know what I mean? Like your leader in, she's
Yeah.
closing it
Yeah.
out for
Yeah.
you.
We
It's
say
it's
that
a good
God brought us
it's a good duo
Yes.
together.
though. I'm not against it. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I was asked this question, okay, so I broke it down in two parts. I had an anxiety song and I had a depression song. So my anxiety song was "Artificial Suicide" by Bad Omens. Okay, so I know the song. It sounds terrible name for the song, but it's the constant strumming. Like when my anxiety's in full gear, my heart is racing at this pace. Okay, so this song just goes like that. That's the part of it. The whole song name, I know it sounds a little extreme, but it best represents what my anxiety's like. So my depression song had two choices. I had either different kind of pain by Cold because it's just the real mellowness of the song. When you're in that depressive mode, you're just like you don't really want to do anything, and you're just
Yeah.
kind of
It's
like
kind of an
drifting away.
ambiguous
And the other
Yeah.
one was Turn the Light On, Talk with the Dark by Papa Roach, which is one of my favorite bands of all time. Just because the message of the end of the thing is call 988 if you need help, things like that. And I love the fact that, they were so open about it and things like that, because music plays a big part in our lives. We all get that mood, we feel a different way. We're just like, you know what, let me turn something on. You turn that one song on that just really makes you feel really good about everything, and things like that too. So, I've had the pleasure of having many artists come in the studio and hang out with me. And we've talked about music all the time and things like that. All right. So now we're to the final question in the reason I started this podcast. Now, here's the question for both you ladies, is that if you could break the stigma about mental health, now you can choose anything you'd like that you just want people to stop believing, what would you say that one thing would be?
I think kind of like what you and I just were talking about, Tana, that mental health is everybody. We all have mental health. It's just some of us live with a condition or an illness.
Mm-hmm.
So to say, oh, well, this person's mental health, well, what about your mental health? Because again, like Tana said, it's your entire being, is emotional, spiritual, all of those things in one. So I think one of the stigmas that people have is that, oh, this person has a mental health thing. This person well, we all got mental health. Every last one of us has mental health.
Yeah, and I think adding to that, and something that you said previously, laKisha, and you framed it as like almost like dishonoring God or something if you seek help for your mental health, in some religious contexts that isn't useful or applicable or even really actually what the doctrine of pretty much any religion is. But a lot of people view it as like some kind of personal failure, a character flaw. And that is extremely ineffective, and it holds a person back so much, and it prevents them from living their best life. It's and like some people say, like, I want to be able to do it myself. I want to do it myself. And to that, I'm like, well, I mean, how did you get here? Did your mom put you on her back and bring you here? Like, you got here yourself. It's like if you tell me to put this nail into this table, and I find it the most effective tool to do it, I get a hammer because that's, I could stomp on it. I could get a rock and pound it, but a hammer is an effective tool, and that's how I do it. Like, did I not do that? Like, why make it harder than it needs to be? Getting help is doing it. Utilizing a tool, that's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great point. I love that. I was like, you just keep going, girl. I was gonna let you just keep going there. You were just laying
Yeah,
out.
well, I mean, I
it
can
all
talk all
made
day.
That
perfect
was
I had to
sense.
stop myself.
That was good. Oh, yes.
No, you didn't have to
I
stop
felt
it. You could
like-
have just kept going. I would have just sat here for a minute and let
Yes.
you go, because I'm like, you're just laying out all the correct
Yeah.
points. I'm like, you're not wrong. Like, think about what you just said makes perfect sense when you break it down for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's when the problem with mental health is that a lot of people don't know where to start the conversations, and that's why it was so great having both of you here hanging out with me today. Ladies, I appreciate you both being here. I really do. Before we wrap up this thing, do you all want to let everybody know where they can find you guys? I will definitely have all their links in my bio inside the episode description for this episode, so you can reach out to them and let them know you heard them here on Pete vs. Anxiety.
Thank you. Yeah, you can find me pretty much anywhere. If you can spell my name correctly, you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. My neurovana.com. You can't get away from me. You can't escape me. Neurovana's on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. I just love to talk about mental health. You mentioned, you let me go. I could just stand up and give a 5-hour seminar right now on mental health because I'm very passionate about it. It's been so rewarding and fulfilling in my career, and I'm really appreciative that you had me as your guest today.
Thank you so much. laKisha, where can they find you, girl? Lay it out for them. We know you got some grand entrance for us. Do it.
Well, I'm like, Tana, hey, if you can spell my name right, you can find me on any platform as laKisha M. Mosley. Now, I'm an IG girl. I'm trying to play on LinkedIn. I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying, but I'm an IG girl. I am DM friendly. Just don't come in there with no foolishness. I respond to all my own DMs. I'm trying to play on TikTok. It's just not my thing, but I'm there too. All platforms as laKisha M. Mosley. My website is laKishaMosley.com. You can always go on there and send me a message. I love getting messages. I love people reaching out to me. I love connecting people as well. Mental health is a passion, but it's also my calling. And I'm going to talk about it until they lay me out or I'm caught up in the rapture, whatever, whichever one comes first.
Till they get a restraining order,
Exactly,
right?
or that until they're like, shut up talking about it.
Yeah, and I call bull on like a little bit of foolishness.
Yeah,
Like,
just a little bit.
right? It's no,
Just a little bit.
Oh my God. Well, ladies, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today. You guys are both welcome to come back anytime you like. This was a great conversation. I enjoyed having both of you here. Thank you so much for taking the time and being here, guys. And with that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety, guys. You know where to find me on Pete vs. Anxiety. I'm X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to Pandora Radio. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you do could save somebody's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety, sign off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health?
Is it sign of respect? Is it I predict, but never dive the price of